Hi, this is Joe Bonyai with Fastpitch Power, and in today's video blog I'm going to continue my series on muscles and exercises a softball pitcher can't pitch without. In parts 1 and 2 I explained what muscles contribute to an effective and explosive drive away from the rubber, and also which muscles contribute to maintaining optimal posture throughout the delivery. Today we reach a really critical and complex instant in the delivery, and that's the instant at which the pitcher begins to track. Now that's the language used on Fastpitch Power. Now if you're a fitness professional and aren't familiar with this, a pitcher will begin their delivery square facing home plate, and they'll accelerate off the mound with their pelvis and shoulders facing home plate. As they enter a flight phase, as they explode towards home plate, they'll turn their body toward the third base side. Again, I'm speaking to the fitness professionals that might not be familiar with the sequence. They turn their body to the third base side. What's important here is that they don't turn their torso, their shoulders, and their lower torso, their pelvis, together as one piece. Explosive, advanced pitchers will actually begin that separation by moving their upper torso, their shoulders, prior. I'm going to get back into this in part 2. I called this a half-kneeling drive through, just so you can see I'm kind of exhausting my extension off this back hip. An effective pitcher is going to begin to track by separating their upper body from their lower body ahead of their lower trunk. So they're going to continue to drive, keeping their lower trunk square to home plate, while for an instant their upper trunk or their upper torso begins to rotate towards third base. Now the lower trunk or the pelvis will follow. It'll follow underneath the shoulders. As soon as the stride foot contacts the ground, the lower trunk, will begin its rotation into home plate. The upper trunk will then follow. So to review, as I exhaust that extension or my drive through off the mound and begin to track, my upper body will begin to rotate away from home plate toward the third base side. My lower trunk will then follow, putting my stride leg in a good position to contact the ground, slightly closed or internally rotated. As soon as that stride foot contacts the ground, my torso will rotate. The lower torso rotates into the lead hip toward home plate, but it does so slightly ahead of the upper torso. That whole sequence contributes to velocity in two ways. Initially, this separation, this turn of the upper torso away from the lower torso allows the lower body to really complete its extension. In younger pitchers who are weak, you'll see that as they drive off the rubber, that drive quickly turns into like a drag through, because their whole body turns together, and they fall back onto their trail leg. The back toe points toward the third base side, and instead of leaping and driving into the stride leg, they drag the back leg. They don't have the ability to begin to track while still exhausting any horsepower they have in their lower body. Now it could be lower body weakness, it could be core weakness. It doesn't matter at that age. They need to get stronger overall. But in advanced pitchers, you'll see that they continue to drive, to jump, to explode, to sprint toward home plate with their pelvis almost square to home plate for much longer as they begin to track or begin to separate their upper body away from their lower body. Now, the second way this contributes to velocity is as soon as the stride foot contacts the ground, the lower trunk, as soon as the stride foot contacts the ground, the arm's going to be at about 12 o'clock, or a little bit behind, maybe at like 11, between 10 and 12. The lower trunk will then begin its rotation into home plate, and that begins the release sequence, if you want to call it that. The lower trunk leads ahead of the upper trunk. that contributes to velocity in this way. When the lower trunk separates from the upper body, okay, so the lower trunk or the belly button or back hip begins its rotation toward home plate, and the upper body is left behind, we create a stretch across the torso, the anterior, the front torso musculature. These muscles are then stretched like a rubber band. And similar to a rubber band, when we stretch it and let go, we don't have to expend any more energy to contribute to its contraction, to its shortening. So not only am I utilizing my upper body musculature to release the ball, but now following this pre-stretch, this big load across the torso, that stretch is going to lead to even more, or contribute to more velocity and energy exerted into the ball. So I hope that makes sense. That's a really complex sequence, and this might not be a mechanic that you teach on the skill side, but this is definitely a capacity that we can assess, that one, we know it's important, two, we can assess in the training room, and then we can enhance through proper training. Two capacities, physical capacities, allow a pitcher to do that. All right, not only do you have to be strong enough to actually get moving off the mound with enough velocity to have enough time to do all that, but at that instant, at the point at which the upper body needs to dissociate from the lower body then you reassociates with the upper body, and then the lower body then dissociates away from the upper body, creating the stretch across the torso, which leads to that stretch reflex, which contributes extra energy into the ball. The two capacities that contribute to that are mobility, and when I say mobility, softball community, you just have to think flexibility, the ability to really move and be loose and be relaxed. The other, and more specific and more important typically for young females, is stability or strength. And I'm going to explain, I'm going to try to give an analogy on exactly what I mean. What's really moving here, or separating, or rotating, is our spine. And if you think of the spine as like a jar of pickles or a jar of salsa that it's tough to get open, you need to hold on to the bottom half of that spine or the bottom half of that jar and secure it with a group of muscles, while another group of muscles secures the top half of that and rotates it away. If the bottom half isn't secure, okay, and you try to rotate with the top half, everything rotates together. So similar to a young pitcher who's weak, if the musculature of the lower core isn't doing its job, everything rotates together. That would be the hand in my analogy. Okay? So we have muscles that contribute to rotation, and we have muscles that contribute to stability of the jar, so to speak. So again, that analogy is, if you have a jar and that jar is going to replace our spine in this example, okay, we need a group of muscles that are going to secure the jar, and you have another group of muscles that are going to twist off the top of the jar. Twist off the top in this instance is the ability to rotate the upper body slightly ahead of the lower body. And one group has to be secure and to resist rotation. The other group is acting, all right, to rotate or to move their half, or their half of the system, we'll call it. That's a lot of information, but it's important that on fast pitch power we don't dumb it down, all right, to the lowest common denominator. We want people who are going to follow these video blogs to appreciate the effort and the thought process behind the exercises, because if I just kept spatting out new exercise progressions, we'd just be like any other trainers or skill coaches. The arms race would be to come up with the hardest stuff, and that's not our goal. It's to come up with the best principles and the best applications to support those principles for performance enhancement. After all that, all a softball fitness professional or softball coach really needs to know now is that we have two capacities to work on. One is mobility of segments that are designed to move, and the other is stability or strength of segments or surrounding segments that are designed to be stable, specific to the sport mechanics. All right. So as you can see, at this point in the delivery, I need a stable jar down here, head, core, abs, muscles surrounding the lower torso, and I need to be super mobile in the top half. Okay? So I'm going to design or demonstrate, some exercises that challenge that association or linkage and dissociation at the same time. So the ability to control one half of the torso while moving or being unsupported on the other half. In the female population, stability is more often important than mobility, honestly. Typically, young females are blessed really with a ton of mobility, almost to a fault, almost to a point of joint laxity, which makes them predisposed to other issues. But however, the exercise prescription remains the same. We have to focus on total body stability. In this case, I'm going to be challenging that rotational stability of the torso during core exercises. The piece of equipment I'm going to be using or profiling is the valve slide. These are available on our store. The store is linked to Perform Better, again, which is a fantastic source for take-home or at-home fitness equipment, stuff that you can fit in your bag. If you guys have indoor workouts, you can take these and use these on either a carpeted surface, or I think they may even have covers that make these valve slides appropriate for hard court or indoor surfaces.